So let's try something a little different today. What if we looked at a life not as a simple story, but, well, more like a series of notes and observations and findings? What if we framed a life as a personal social science experiment?
I mean, just think about it. Our lives are filled with all these structured inputs, right? You've got your lists, your routines, report cards, curriculums. You could almost think of those as the variables. But this experiment is also tracking something, well, something a lot messier and more human. It's tracking curiosity and adaptation, that constant hypothesis we all have about who we are. It's really a process of learning and then unlearning.
And this is the core idea that's going to guide us through this whole thing. The source material just puts it all out there with this one simple declaration. Okay, so let's dive in and see what kind of data this experiment has actually collected. All right, so our first field note, where do we start collecting data? Well, it comes from the most immediate source we have, our own bodies. The way we choose to dress ourselves, to interact with the world around us, that's our first piece of hard evidence. The concept here is fascinating. It's called dressing by Braille. It's all about picking out what we wear, not by how it looks, but by this intuitive feel for what the body actually needs. In this case, that means comfort, breathable layers, and a real sense of protection. And a big part of this data point is also defined by what it rejects. There's this very clear turning away from anything that feels restrictive or artificial. It's a refusal to be squeezed or contained or stopped from moving naturally. So the alternative is a clear preference for materials that actually work with the body. Fabrics that can breathe, that expand and contract with you. This isn't just about clothes. It's about creating a protective layer that gives you both freedom and comfort.
Okay, so let's move to our next field note and see where this goes. We've looked at the external evidence from the body. Now we turn inward to gather data on the psychological landscape, what the source is calling the dysfunctional dilemma.
And the internal data points, wow, they really start to paint a picture of a modern condition. The first observation is this deep-seated sense of deficiency, just that feeling that something is fundamentally missing or not enough.
And that's followed by detention. Now, this isn't a literal prison, of course, but that internal feeling of being held back, maybe trapped or just unable to move forward in your own life.
Then we get to dysregulation, which is basically a state of internal chaos, where your emotions and impulses just feel scattered and totally out of your control.
And all of these feelings, well, they lead to disenchantment, a profound loss of wonder or magic, or even just belief in the world around you.
And all these data points, deficiency, detention, dysregulation, disenchantment, they all come together and culminate in one really powerful diagnosis that kind of sums it all up: dysfunctional.
So when you look at them all together, this collection of words creates a diagnosis, right? It's a field note on a state of being that just feels fundamentally off-kilter. The crucial finding here is that the experiment has identified this core problem in its internal data, this dysfunctional dilemma.
So we have data from the body and the mind. What's the next logical phase in any experiment? Well, you form a hypothesis. And to do that, it looks like we have to start deconstructing the foundational myths that shape how we see the world. The experiment goes to one of the most famous origin stories of all time, Remus and Romulus, the guys who founded Rome. But it completely flips the script. Instead of focusing on the heroic sons who were raised by a wolf, it zeroes in on their human mother, the one who was forced to abandon her own babies in a basket on the river.
Now, to really get this critique, it helps to know about something called attachment style. This is a real psychological concept. It basically explains how our very first bonds with our caregivers create a kind of template for all of our future relationships. A secure attachment gives you this foundation of safety and trust.
And this is exactly where the analysis makes the connection. This great romantic myth of Rome, when you look at it through the modern lens of attachment theory, you see it's actually rooted in some serious trauma. It is, like the source says, so far from secure attachment style. And that leaves us with the central question of the hypothesis. In celebrating the empire built by the sons, we completely forget the mother. Her story, her trauma, it's just erased. What happened to her? And that question just hangs in the air, challenging the very foundation of the story we all thought we knew. We've gathered our data, we've formed our hypothesis. So, what's the conclusion of this whole deeply personal social science experiment? What are the final findings?
Well, the conclusion isn't some grand theory or a big definitive answer. It's this: a still life, a quiet, careful arrangement of small, what might seem like insignificant objects.
So let's look closer at what's in this collection. We've got tiny dried flowers, a piece of soap and a quartz crystal, a Southern Belle figurine, and this small paper tag that just says dancing. These aren't grand historical artifacts. They're the small, personal, random fragments that actually make up a life.
And this, right here, is the experiment's ultimate finding. The solution to that dysfunctional dilemma isn't to deconstruct every myth or solve every big problem. Instead, meaning is found in the simple, profound act of rescue, saving these small, beautiful fragments from the chaos of life's movements.
And that brings us to the end, not with an answer, but with a question for you to take with you. If you look at your own life as an experiment, with all its data and its complexities, what small, beautiful fragments are there, just waiting for you to find them and rescue them?